Negotiations in Washington over immigration reform have moved from the U.S. Senate to the House of Representatives. The Senate bill calls for increasing border security and for giving immigrants without legal status a path to citizenship. But it's expected the House, with its Republican majority, will try to make changes in the measure or even have it derailed. Our guest is from one of the organizations concerned about the outcome. We'd like to welcome the Executive Director of the Brazilian Immigrant Center, Natalicia. Tracy, thank you very much for being with us, Natalicia.
Thank you.
First of all, how this provision of some kind of path to citizenship would affect the people who are here right now who don't have legal status. What does this mean for them?
Well, it means everything for 11 million immigrants that are living in this country right now undocumented. Many of them, they live in fear every day of deportation. This policy, this new immigration reform, will allow them to, live in this country, work, drive, and go on with their daily life activities without fear of deportation.
And of course, if you don't live in one of those more preferable areas where there's good public transit and you have to get to work, you might have to use a car.
That's right. It has been an issue because a lot of the jobs required a lot of driving. For example, the guys working in construction, it's a big industry where you're constantly moving from city to city, from job to job. And of course, for domestic workers, the same way. They clean about 5 to 10 houses a day.
Talk about how legal status would make things different from people who work very hard and who just don't want to be exploited.
That's right. Another issue of being undocumented is create an underground space for exploitation, where people are afraid of reporting wage theft, marginalization, and any kind of abuse or verbal abuse or any even violence, not verbal, but also physical aggression that sometimes happen at the workplace. This will allow workers to understand, first of all, if they work, they should get paid. It's the law. They know that now, Massachusetts laws, it does not discriminate against anybody. If you work, you get paid, but workers they're often intimidated by the fact they're undocumented by employers. So they work and they don't get paid. So that's something that will be eliminated. All workers will feel more comfortable with coming forward with, wage complaints and other types of labor issues that they have to deal with every day.
I guess this would also change the balance of tax obligations and benefits from government programs. I guess you have to chip in more, but maybe you can also eventually collect more down the line as you get older.
Yes, that's right, because right now the 11 million people in this country, many of them do pay taxes, because even though you are here undocumented, you are working, and you, actually there's a called ITIN number, I'm sure you heard, it's a government issued number that you can use to pay taxes, but you cannot use to work. So it's sort of a catch-21. Most people use that in order to be able to register for a job, and they pay taxes, but they're not entitled to any benefits right now, such as you just mentioned, Social Security, retirement, and so on. So they will definitely, eventually, with legalization, they will be able to actually, what they already invested into the system, what they already paid, they should be able to use some of that. That's my understanding.
Talk about the economic effect of this kind of reform, because I know there are jobs out there that don't pay much money, they're very difficult, and if immigrants didn't do them, probably no one else would. But there are other cases where immigrants really are competing against people. They might not have very high skills, and they're competing against other people without high skills, and I guess they might feel they're being hurt by that.
Well, I think we're always going to have need for people to work in every sector, right? We're going to have always need, not just need, but people who are very comfortable doing farm work. And they might be happy continuing to do that. We have people doing domestic work. It's a job that they love, and that's what they know how to do it, and they will stay in that industry. And we're going to have people who's going to want more. They're going to want education and professional training, and definitely they're going to compete. But competition is a good thing. I think it's part of this country's history, and that's how we have built good, a good system is with competition, and may the best man win, right?
The other component here is the border security, and I guess any kind of enforcement that goes with trying to make sure that there's at least some reduction in the number of people who come here without legal status. Right now, there's debate about that. Some people in the Senate say we're throwing a lot more money in here now, a lot more personnel, and then again, there are some Republicans in the House of Representatives say it's not enough, it's not automatic enough, so they want to beef it up.
Yes, well, as you know, last year they spent $18 billion beefing up border security, and they're planning on double a lot of the patrols and so on. It's more money that they have spent in the whole country, security issues. You know, altogether they spent $14.2 billion in security in the whole country, and they spent $18 billion in border security. I do think that it's an issue of concern, but also got to remember a lot of the people that are in this country, they overstayed their visa, or they came with a visa waiver. You know, it's not everyone coming in through the borders, at least half of it.
Of course, the other part of this is when people are detained, they're held someplace, and that costs money too.
Cost a lot of money. That's another revenue that I think that another area that the country could be making better investment of the money. First of all, it's multi-layers. First of all, when you take someone that are being a productive member of society, paying for the house, the children, the expenses of their families, because we're not talking about just a labor migrant. We're talking about people who have been living in this country for decades now, and they have children, and they have wife, and they have one or two children, right? So you're removing them from being productive, paying for the expenses of their family and contributing to society, into a system where you have to provide for them and might even end up providing for their family too, because the children are American citizens, and under their citizenship they're entitled to support. It's their right, under the citizenship. If the family cannot care for them, they may even end up in foster care, and the government will be responsible for them. So that's one way that we are paying. The other way we're paying is at the high cost of housing them in detention center, sometimes for as long as 18 months. It costs about $160 per day to house one person in the country. And in this country, every day, there are at least 30,000 beds occupied around the country, which we are paying for.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Natalicia Tracy from the Brazilian Immigrant Center.